say welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the eSports panel for COM-eCON 2020. COM-eCON is brought to you by NAICCON. NAICCON is Nairobi Comic Convention. Today we have our list of guests on the eSports space. We are going to talk about eSports. Here we have, I'll start with Alwin, all the way from South Africa. Alwin is the founder and MD of White Rabbit Gaming. We have Cholwe. Cholwe actually has been in some of the tournaments held by PSG, and they took away the money. So Cholwe is the only lady in the group. And then now we have Yusuf. Yusuf is joining us from Egypt. Hey, Yusuf. Thank you guys for being in the panel. I will do a start, just a quick background on who you are. Talk about yourselves, what you've done, what's happening in your different regions, and then we'll pick it up from there. We'll start with the lady. Hey, Cholwe.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Thomas. My name is Cholwe Shabukali. I'm the managing director and co-founder of Team Gematrix. Team Gematrix is the first esports team in Zambia, and we primarily right now focus on console games, fighting games such as Mortal Kombat, Injustice, and we're getting into FIFA very soon.
Awesome. Alwin, have a go.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Alwyn Venter, also known as Switch Online, from South Africa, based in Johannesburg, and I'm the managing director for White Rabbit Gaming. We actually started as a casual gaming brand back in 2008. We were a small community of casual gamers. In 2010, StarCraft 2 launched, so some of us picked that up as a title, started playing that competitively. In 2014, we expanded into League of Legends, which to us was a great move. In 2015, we expanded into CS:GO and Dota 2 with the announcement of the Masters tournament being held in South Africa. And in 2016, we won the Dota 2 Masters, the inaugural tournament, which was great. And after that, we've got quite a solid history of performance in terms of qualifying for the WESG Southern African Finals, which were held in Dubai. We also played in the WESG Finals in China, in Hainan. And then end of last year, which was quite a nice one as well, where we played in ESWC for League of Legends, which was quite a nice experience. And yeah, this year we expanded into Sim Racing and Valorant as our two new titles. So looking forward to much more gaming to come in the future.
Awesome. Eric, are you with us?
Of course I am.
Awesome.
Okay.
So I think you have a unique space, especially just being head of events.
Yes.
I'm guessing that's very unique, especially in esports team, as it's a new industry and that's coming up. So a lot of these spaces and dockets are kind of being created. So kind of advise us where coming from, especially as Fnatic.
Cool. My name is Eric Londre. I'm, as you said, head of events at Fnatic, and I was probably, I think, the first person to have that position in an esports team. Basically, I work for Fnatic. If you're not aware of who we are, we're one of arguably one of the biggest esports teams on the planet. We're based out of London, but we have very much a global approach with teams based out of Berlin, Sweden, India, Southeast Asia, and Australia. So we have basically fans all across the world. We make our own gaming peripherals. We make our own apparel. I'm wearing a T-shirt today, at least. Yes. So it's been. I joined 4 years ago, and the company has grown massively over those 4 years. It's a very exciting ride. Personally, yes, my role is head of events, which basically pre-COVID, I was doing a lot of event marketing. So basically, I was a lot of expo booths, parties, pop-up shops, fun activations for our fans, often together with our sponsors as as collaborators. And since COVID hit, I'm sort of taking a more strategic and creative role within the partnership team. So basically planning campaigns for our partners.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe I may ask, in terms of, are there anything kind of like everyone is kind of gravitating to the online space? Have you guys, you're doing, if it's events online or engaging?
Of course, yeah. I've been spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to do that and how you make it relevant, because I think that's like the real challenge when it comes to online space. And I think I'm really excited about the opportunities that games such as Fortnite and Counter-Strike as well, which basically gives you tools to create your own spaces through custom maps. I think that's going to be a really big way to interact with people and create digital experiences and digital experiential marketing, basically.
Actually, maybe you can even mention, you guys have a tournament, I think, in the next hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, we're currently in the World Championship for Crossfire. So basically, I'll give you a bit of a background on Anubis 2.
Please do.
Since if my mic was on, I would have interrupted you guys like 4 or 5 times, starting with you asking Fnatic to come build a team in Africa. I think we should do that ourselves. No offense to Fnatic, but yeah, I started Anubis Gaming back in 2015 when I found out something extremely painful but surprising, and it was a great opportunity for me, which is that the Middle East and Africa had 0 esports teams. We were mainly operating with pugs, which are pickup groups, 5 players who know each other personally, who build a team together, with no backing whatsoever, with no media representation whatsoever, with no sponsorship whatsoever, because at the end of the day, they have to focus on playing and operating the team. So that was a very big surprise, because I knew personally that we had a lot of potential and talent in Egypt, as well as the entire region, since most of the countries around us also have a lot of talent when it comes to Morocco, South Africa, Algeria, Tunisia, and a lot of others. So the plan was that I was living in Barcelona at the time. The plan was for me to go back to Cairo and start operating from there, bringing in talent from all over the region, and hopefully competing against the biggest teams in the world in many game titles. What I came to find out is that even if you have a completely finished team with a complete set of staff supporting them, everything you basically need to operate an esports team, it's still not enough for you to participate in any tournaments operated by a publisher or any global tournaments, because we don't have a server in our region. So basically, after building everything and propping everything up, I came to the painful discovery that even after all the hard work we put in, we still have to wait until we're seen as a continent or a region that deserves us to have a server, you know. So it was a pretty big obstacle, since we had already started investing, and we always thought that was what we were missing. And the more painful thing was that every time we used to reach out to a publisher, they never gave us a time frame, because it was never in their plans. It was quite a mystery, but at the end of the day, when you look around you and you find that there are 0 organizations and 0 entities who want to step into the space, then it makes sense, since even if the publisher had come to build a platform, most of the teams in the tournaments would have been pugs, so there would have been a lack of professionalism, a lack of skill, since the players aren't that focused on playing as much as they are on building a brand or building their own team. So
Yes,
Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Sorry, let me cut you short because you're actually going into the next point that I really wanted to
No,
highlight.
sure,
You
go
can
ahead.
just continue. It's kind of like spearheading a lot. Like even in the UK, even a Fnatic, we're all spearheading a new industry. So it's just continue with the conversation. Sorry to cut you off. Like,
No,
what
it's
are the
fair.
challenges? You can pick it up with just where you are, and then we'll also pick it up with the other panelists. The challenges and hurdles you faced, being new developments that are coming up. I'll be honest, part of the things, like kind of like it's in Kenya, we weren't able to get Hirsi. Their team is called Watchmen. They're in Kenya. Sorry, they had a blackout in their area. It's somewhat of, if the term gaming in Kenya is linked to betting. So if you say we are a gaming company, like, okay, betting is kind of frowned upon where we are. Aside from also many of the other challenges that you just pointed out, kind of just maybe you can point out also what you guys had to face and how you overcame them and where you guys are right now.
The biggest challenge for me was society, starting with even the parents of the players themselves, since we have this thing in Egypt. I don't know whether or not it's present in Africa, but I've seen it in Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, and many of the countries I operated in, where if something isn't popular enough or if something isn't wide enough, it's frowned upon. So we had the same problem with football in the 50s and 60s, where us as a continent looked at football as just a waste of time, a way for the Western world and the world in general to sort of brainwash us from developing ourselves. That was it was a horrible mistake, since when you look around, when you see La Liga, the Premier League, the Bundesliga, all the regions around us have amazing entities and amazing formats to sort of kickstart anyone's career if they want to be a football player. And now we're just starting in Africa to sort of catch up. For example, we have Mohamed Salah, we have Sadio Mane, we have a handful of players. We don't have a lot of players, but they're very talented, they're very committed, and they show us that if we had looked into the sport in a proper way 40, 50 years ago, it would have been completely different. And that's what I'm trying to do with Anubis ever since day one. Even though we had to wait 4 years for our first publisher tournament, it was still worth it. Because I couldn't live with the fact that we have the talent necessary. We have the people you need to make this talent work. But the only thing you're missing is the discipline and the education when it comes to how to play. Because this comes automatically with Europeans, Asians, and Americans alike. The way they're raised and the way they're brought up helps a lot when it comes to sports and esports as a whole in terms of discipline. So this is something we had to start much earlier to fix, because the players were used to playing in cyber cafes where their parents used to attack them, their friends used to make fun of them, and society as a whole didn't understand what they were doing. So they were playing the game wrong. They were playing the game for fun or sort of as a release, when some of them were supposed to be playing the game in a very different way, since they had the talent needed to actually succeed. So this is what we were trying to fix for 3-4 years, coming to a player with so much talent and translating what he does to the parents, since it's been very difficult for him to actually show them or help them understand what he's doing and how good he is. So we had players who were as good as professional players, but their parents used to attack them as if they were using drugs, you know. So it was it was a funny experience, but at the end of the day, when the parents saw us and what we invested in their kids and the way we saw their future, they were all in. Every single parent we've met with in a couple of weeks sees this change, sees that at the end of the day, this is someone who has talent and you need to work on this talent so you don't regret anything in your life when you grow up. And that at the end of the day, this is a person who spent a very big amount of time on playing a game, and he deserves some payback, you know. Like, this is my theory, if you do something for a very long period of time and you want to be good at this something, then this something has to pay you back, you know. So if you're a professional player, you at the level needed to perform professionally, I think we deserve the chance to participate, and the only game and publisher that cared about the region or Egypt as a whole, since we had a lot of players in their game, was Crossfire. Crossfire is, when you look at it from the outside, a game that's pretty weak in terms of graphics and pretty weak in terms of population around the world, but it's extremely popular in China and Egypt, and we saw it as a very good opportunity to help scale up the careers of the players we have in this game. After that, this year...
Let me cut you short there, just a quick bit. Maybe you can finish up and then we'll go to Cholwe just to tell us, because she is from Southern Africa, and maybe there's some unique sense in terms of maybe there's more approval, or maybe the government kind of supports them over there. Just finish up on your thought.
Yeah, and right now, for the first time, Riot Games is holding a League of Legends tournament in the form of a league in the Middle East and Africa. It's been amazing. Absolutely amazing, since it's the first time we have a consistent match on a weekly basis or sometimes a daily basis. It has brought fans of esports together. It has helped us a lot in connecting to our fans, since they can watch us on a daily or weekly basis. And I think if that had started 4 years ago, we would have been in a completely different place right now. Me and Eric would have been fighting together on this call, so that we would have been competing against each other, So, but I think there's still hope, and I think there's a lot of potential. And the thing that pushes me the most is that I know there's going to be an esport one day that's going to use our identity as Africans, like football has and like squash has with Egypt. So this is my hope, and this is what I'm working towards.
Awesome, thank you very much. Cholwe.
Yes.
I think the first time we can engage was in our tournament in 2018. You took a huge leap in flying your players all the way to Kenya. So kinda take us through same thing. What challenges have you faced in terms of especially just running an esports team in Zambia, and how have you overcome them, and kind of like what kind of remains to break that, push over that next hurdle?
Okay. So I've noticed that it's Yusuf, right?
Yeah.
Yusuf, yeah. Yes. Nice to meet you. So we've had similar challenges as Yusuf in terms of acceptance and the players adapting from casual to professional, because primarily in Zambia, most of the people who would play games would play from game centers. So there's been a lack of seriousness of taking it to the next level. So what happened when we started up in the Matrix is in 2017, when we were going through an incubator called Bongo Hive, and they told us to really try to research the market and understand where we are in Zambia and where everyone else in the region is, we came to realization that all tournaments that were happening, whether they were small or big, just stopped. So by the time we were coming in 2017, it was like 2 years ago, like 2 years prior, that's when the last event that was like unifying like the country was held. So what happened is we tried to do a small tournament so that we can just see if there's really much activity, and we got positive feedback because we had a lot of players who came from other provinces who traveled from around the country to our tournament, and it was really small, just about 150 people plus 3 games. We did console games because that's the primary game that most Zambians are used to, the primary mode, per se, console. So after we did that, we were at the point in our business where we were like, should we just do events or should we get into a team? So what happened was we saw great talent at the events. We saw players really play their heart out, and it made us think, say, can these players really give the same effort if they were to play in South Africa? Because by that time, South Africa was the only country that we saw that was having a lot of tournaments in console where it was FIFA or a couple of fighting games here and there. So after we created we talked to the players and we brought them together. We did our contracts. We tried to be professional about everything. Had lawyers look at everything. Told the players that we have to now get from a point where we stop playing casually and we start thinking of this professionally. Have schedules for playing. Have boot camps amongst ourselves and train. Then, luckily, we came across PSG and we found that they were having a tournament just around the time we actually launched the team. And we said, okay, this is our chance to actually test if this can be viable. And we took the chance and we went to PSG, and we were faced with really competitive players who actually showed us that our skill level is also as well as theirs. And we performed well. We got first place and third place, walking out to the championship. After that, the challenge that we faced now was capital, in terms of people really investing, whether it was as sponsors or investing in the organization itself. It was very hard because when we started, we were the only esports organization in the country, and it was very hard for us to get people to see us as more than just kids, because I think I was about 23 or 22 by that time. So it was really hard for people to see me as just some girl who's coming to my boardroom asking me for X, and she's telling me, no, to give this type of value. There was a thing where people would be like, okay, fine. Someone gave us a very good question that was really hard for me to answer. So the market value of esports globally is projected to be in the billions of dollars, right? Going towards that. And then in SA, you've got millions of rands in terms of market value. How much is Zambia worth? And then I was like, because at that time I was I was operating with the only organization in the country. So now we really had to brush up on what types of value would actually be able to give, and not just think about what the companies would give us. So that was one of the challenges we had, and we had to really brush up on. The other thing was the cultural perspective in Africa or Zambia per se. People would consider games, even now, no matter how many championships we've won, no matter how much our players have achieved or what we do, people still frown upon the idea of a gaming esports business. And even if they look at the stats or what other great organizations like Fnatic or Anubis or White Rabbit are doing around the regions, it's very hard for them to think that, Zambia can actually do that. So it's something that we've always been trying to fight. With the players, it's the same. They've been having criticism, get a real job, just focus on school because they're all in university. So there's all that happening back and forth. But the way we've overcome it is we've managed to get a couple of businesses on board to hire us to do activations for them, which is great. We landed our first partner who's TechXA based in the Middle East. So that's great because they give us peripherals that help us in our gaming journey. We really had to focus on how the business would be sustainable and how it would produce much value for potential partners or sponsors. So that's a challenge we overcame by really looking deep into ourselves and realizing our strengths and our weaknesses and brushing up on those. And that's how we came up with those challenges. Some challenges would take longer to overcome, like the challenge of culture and people adapting to considering esports as something that's viable, whether it's in the corporate space or in households. It will really take some time, just like the way it did with soccer, as Yusuf mentioned. It will really take some time, and us really just doing our part at growing our entities. So that's really what we've been focusing on, how we grow ourselves and make ourselves better will actually impact the surrounding organizations or people around us. So I think unless there's something else you want me to say, but
cool. Thank you, man. Thank you. Maybe we can go to Eric can tell us, and then we'll finish off with Alwin, especially just on this particular space. How has the journey for let's say Fnatic, or even from presently just where you are, even in a general sense. You can even be specific, even in your own office, in the context of the hurdles, because as mentioned, we are all spearheading a new thing. In as much as there's better reception in some markets, you will never fail to face challenges, regardless of wherever it is. So kind of maybe you can tell us what's unique just for you guys in your space.
No, I think you make a very good point that we're all on our own spearheading this industry, and that's why my background was in nightlife and events and music, and it was when I found esports and saw the potential, that was it. I wanted to be part of building a new industry, right? Because this is where we should count ourselves lucky that we're part of a journey like this, right? We're building the future, quite literally, of entertainment and sports. But yeah, I would say the challenges we're facing is that it is a bit of an arms race. There's obviously just from when I just as an example to see the difference, what has just happened in Europe and America, like back in 2004 we signed the Counter-Strike team that then grows to become one of the most legendary Counter-Strike teams of all time, and their salaries at the time we signed them in 2014 2013 might have been was maybe $1,000 a month or something, and prize money was you can imagine that it's not 10 times that nowadays. It's more like 20 30 times that, depending on the player. So obviously
I'll be honest, sorry to cut you off, I'll be honest, we in Africa want to get to that $1,000 a month.
Yeah, but that's it has to be a gradual thing.
Yep.
And so we also see the challenges we're facing is that so player salaries, costs go up, a lot of capital comes in, it becomes a very much like everybody's trying to become the biggest. Everybody's competing, and they're well funded by VC capital, and everybody's racing to try to be the best and the biggest. But no one can be the number one, because this is competition, right? Barcelona and Real Madrid needs each other. They become bigger because they're playing against each other, and there's a rivalry, right? So there's something. It's not just you can't dominate esports in the same way you can maybe dominate an industry that's consumer goods type industry. But I would say that's the challenges, and figuring out where to put our focus, where to expand, where to sort of educating brands. Like we announced BMW as a partner. It's our biggest sponsorship yet. Amazing company to work with such a legacy, such a premium brand, right? That doesn't happen in half a year. A deal like that doesn't come together in a year. That's like 2 years of hard work for an org like Fnatic. So it takes time, it's gonna to get it right and figuring stuff out. But yeah, I think the main thing, is also a big challenge is to figure out what to focus on, because there's so much opportunity, right? And there's so many exciting, markets to enter. There's so many different game titles. There's so much opportunity in trying to get that right, and I think that's like the biggest challenge, and we can see that from teams that were the same size as Fnatic 2012, 2013, which is like sort of when esports in Europe and America really started to like explode through Twitch a lot, I would say. But a lot, we can see that orgs that were equals with us now, because of choices they made, kind of fell off, right? So it is tough. It is competitive, and we've been lucky so far. We haven't spent any $30 million on any franchise spots. That now seems to be a dead weight. So we're doing okay, and it's growing all the time, and it's very exciting.
I think that's the fear. That's like a major fear, especially for a team where you invest a lot and then it just drops off. You know, it's not like, I think we're kind of alluding a lot to FIFA, to football.
Yeah.
No one owns a football, like, unless they're there and we don't know, or I don't know. But anyone can pick up a ball and they go play. You know, no one will come and say that's my IP, or the next year the company went broke and you had invested in a team to build it, and then it's nowhere. So I think that's a scary scene for an esports team.
We actually have that right now. It's happening right now. We as for the first time in our 16-year existence, a geopolitical situation has had direct impact on our brand through the banning of PUBG Mobile in India.
Thank you for pointing that out. I'll circle back to that. Let me just hit up on Alwyn. Alwyn, please tell us some of the challenges guys have faced, and then we'll kind of get into regulation, because it's a new thing. A lot of the people also who are just bringing the regulation, it's the parent maybe who's telling their kid, don't waste your time on this. So please tell us the challenges, and then we'll circle in. We'll get into that conversation of, are there regulations in your regions, and something like what happened with PUBG. Just how do we go about it and engage in that area? So Alwyn, please.
Yeah, awesome. So I think the challenges from a South Africa point of view is we're pretty much in between. Where the likes of Egypt and Zambia is at the moment, and then where Fnatic is at the moment. So we had a little bit of the parental issue where parents saw gaming as a bit of a waste of time. They didn't really believe that you should be spending so much time in front of a computer until that scene started changing. I would say about 2 years ago. It's fairly new, where we now see parents engaging a lot more, especially at the big competitions. You'll see parents flying with their children, wherever they have to be, and engaging a lot more, engaging with us, management at the event, asking some questions, like, so what's the career path? Where do we go? How do I get my child further? What does gaming mean for them when they actually want to take a step up? So you're having deeper conversations with parents as opposed to just having a conversation like, oh, your kid's really good. There's deeper conversations in terms of which career paths can they take? How will this benefit them in the future? Where can they go? So from that point of view, I think we're starting to establish ourselves more in terms of supporting parents. We also have high school leagues that run in the country, which has helped tremendously in terms of actually establishing that and raising that thought as well. I think the second challenge it's the biggest challenge that we're facing at the moment is financing. Your esports is fairly new, and I think in South Africa, a lot of brands, and maybe even in Africa, a lot of brands are discovering that there's this new thing called esports, and they want a piece of it because it offers you a new target market, a new demographic. Traditionally, your market that's very difficult to focus on with traditional marketing like TV and radio. Esports offers a massive opportunity for brands to actually focus on this, and brands are not sure how to get involved. And I know we'll touch on that maybe a little bit later, but I think from now it's convincing brands to actually get behind esports and get behind the teams, because in the past what would happen as well is there would be like a brand manager and they're like, okay, you know what, we want to get involved in this, and they select a random team with no knowledge or no experience in the field. So they would give some money, and the brand wouldn't be able to deliver on that return on investment. And as all of us know, brands are massive on the bottom line. For every single rand that you spend, your CMO wants to see a return, or your MD wants to see a return on that rand spend. So financial backing keeps being a challenge, but I think that the bigger brands in South Africa definitely are busy making a change. We're busy showing that return on investment, showing that this is actually a fantastic route to follow in marketing and give your brand the necessary flight where you need it. Our second biggest challenge, I would say, is business knowledge. Now, what you will find is as you said, no one owns the IP. Anyone can start an esports team. Anyone can start an organization, which is great. And I think that provides a whole new avenue for entrepreneurs to actually get involved, especially the people that don't want to follow the traditional way of, the corporate world and, going a specific way. So that's great on the one side. I think on the other side as well is the business knowledge in terms of what it requires to be involved in esports, to run an organization, to run teams, because it might seem that it's easy. You get a team together, you select a title in which you want to enter, and from there onwards, you just build a brand. You go and approach, you write a few proposals, you send out a few emails, you go and have a few meetings, and then as soon as you get the money on from that sponsorship, actually executing, and it's a lot deeper. Running an esports organization, and I think I speak for all of us here. It's a lot more than just managing the team and managing the organization. There's a lot more stuff that you manage. You need to manage relationships with tournament organizers. You need to manage sponsorship relationships. You need to manage internal team relationships, which can be a challenge on its own. Relationships with your investors, with your sponsors. There's quite a lot, and I don't think a lot of people have that experience in terms of what's required from running a professional organization. Not coordinating teams, allocating resources, contracts with suppliers, with players, all of that stuff. So from our point of view, what we're trying to do at the moment, from a White Rabbit Gaming point of view, is whenever there's a request that comes in via our website or social media or whatever, for people asking advice, we actually take them under our wing and we coach them on these things if they want to start new organizations, to give them a few pointers and say, look, these are the things that you need to look out for. Okay, you need to have a unique proposition. You need to be able to give your players something in order to stay with you. And which leads me to probably, I would say my second last point is team consistency. It's quite a big challenge as well, where teams get together and they start winning, it's fantastic, but then they leave when things start to go wrong. Like one or two players are having a bad day or a bad week or a bad month, and they decided, no, they'd rather go look for another team or whatever, and that essentially destroys the ecosystem that you're building as well. So what we are trying to do now is just show people the power of actually growing together and how that actually helps the industry moving forward. If you've got consistency, you've got teams getting better over time, you build something that gains interest. And when interest is and eyes are on the industry, then that's something that people want to be a part of. And when people and eyeballs on an industry, that's when brands want to get involved, because that will obviously show you the return on investment. And so the last one I would say is also, it's a little bit of expanding, as as Eric mentioned a little bit earlier. We had to decide at the beginning of the year which titles we wanted to expand into, and the options to us was basically Valorant, because it was a new title coming up. It's growing. It's looking to be real solid at the moment. Fortnite, which is massive globally. In South Africa, quite big on console. And then FIFA, which is a title that we've been thinking of getting into for a long time. And then suddenly sim racing popped up. We just saw sim racing, COVID happen, and it was almost like a natural fit, where we decided, sim racing looks great. There's a lot of eyes on this one. A lot of professional racers getting involved in that. And we decided to go with sim racing and Valorant, which has delivered incredible returns for us in terms of the getting involved in that industry, or in those titles specifically. So I think our challenges are very similar, but if I would single it out, I would say the challenges are more around admin and business, and actually raising the bar of various other smaller organizations wanting to get involved in the scene as well, to grow the scene as a whole, and then showing investors that, this is actually an industry that can give you a lot better return on investment than you think. So I would say that's pretty much a summary where we are sitting at the moment in South Africa.
I like that. It's somewhat of it's like a pipeline, and then there is a progression in terms of challenges. Like there's Cholo, they're very new with Geometrix, so there are those challenges there. You guys are somewhat Yusuf, Alwyn, it's somewhat mid, and then Fnatic. So there is that chain of challenges. Like at this stage there's this, at this stage there's this, at this stage there's also this different and unique challenge in itself. Now, can we also just advise in terms of especially just government? Because I think I mentioned for here, if you say gaming, that's That's a no-no. Before you specify to say no, it's a video game. You may actually be behind bars, and then that's kind of too late. So, what are challenges in terms of regulations? Because we do need government. We can't operate without them. As you just mentioned right now in your previous point, like India, if they ban something, that's it. We need and don't need them, kind of depending on where they are. Like, especially when you're starting, we really need to grow it, but it gets to a level where we do need that level of regulation, especially if it's government. How? Let me just jump to Yusuf. You tell us, let's say Yusuf, and then Alwin, you tell us how your governments kind of are, because you're almost somewhat at a similar level in the industry. Starting with Yusuf, how are the regulations, especially just coming from government, and then we'll go to Cholo, and then we'll finish up with Eric. In the space of esports, are there associations? Are there laws? How has it been taken in terms of regulation in your countries?
I was just about to cut you off when you said we need the government, but then you said we need and we don't need. That's a perfect statement, because I think what esports has done, and Alwin touched on it, and I think Alwin, you misunderstood what Thomas had to say when it comes to owning the IP. He was saying the opposite. So in football, if you're a nation, you get into the World Cup, you get into your local league, which leads up to your regional league. It's a given. You don't need a publisher to come and open up in your region and then operate. It's a given. Like, if you're in San Marino, if you're in Madagascar, if you're in any country in the world, you have that path into challenging the biggest teams in the world if you win the matches you're supplied. And this is something I admire a lot about esports, and I'll touch on the point about the government. I think what esports has done is it has cut off the middleman, which is essentially, in most cases, the FA or the association in charge of this specific sport. So that's what all the publishers removed, because they own the game itself. So if I own League of Legends, or if I own, in the case of PUBG, I own PUBG, you can ban my game. Of course, that's the extreme we don't want to see and we don't want to experience. But at the same time, you can't operate the game in a way, and I think this is only viable in North Africa and the Middle East. You can't sort of abuse or corrupt the market in a way where you halt its development, because the publisher is always the entity in control. Of course, sometimes the publisher isn't the right entity to deal with in some scenarios, but that's the same with anything. There's good and there's bad. But when it comes to esports itself, I think the best thing that has happened, and the worst thing, is that they've taken away everything from any institution that's operating in a region or a country, and they've given all the power to the publisher. Unless, of course, like we said, you completely ban a game, but that didn't have to do with the game. That had to do with something political that has to do with the company. So let's clarify that point, because it didn't have to do with PUBG being a violent game or PUBG being a bad game. It had to do with Tencent itself having issues with India. That was the whole thing, and they didn't have the rights because someone had already taken the name, and they fixed it it was so quick. Like, such a quick fix, because the way they fixed it was they just gave the IP to another company with a different name, and PUBG right now is still operating in India. So it was quite a quick fix, but in terms of regulations, the only reason we need the government is something also Alwin included. We need and don't need them is holding on to players properly. So in developed regions, a player has a contract, a player has commitments, he has to fulfill this contract, and this contract is supported by the local government, because any local government in the developed world sort of fixes all the conflicts between players in any sport and the entities that hire them, because we have our rights and the players have their rights. That isn't the case, of course, in the Middle East and Africa, because esports isn't even in the laws. So when you sign a contract now with a player in Egypt or anywhere in Africa, I think it's the same with South Africa. You might find yourself signing a contract with the player as if he's a game developer in terms of law, because there's no law or there's no job title called an esports player. So that's where we need regulation, and that's where we need the government. But it's very easily fixed, Alwyn. When a publisher comes in and he says if an organization registers a player on January 1st, 2020, if this player gives his permission for the organization to submit his name as part of their roster, then automatically this player cannot leave this organization until the 1st of January 2021. And this is what happened with us last year. We had for 4 years the best League of Legends team in the history of the Middle East. We had won 16 tournaments in a row. And Alwyn and Eric, you're pretty lucky that you don't have neighbors like ours, because we have neighbors in the GCC region that don't care about finances. They don't care about having a business model. They don't care about anything except lifting a trophy inside a stadium. And you've seen that in Europe with PSG and Man City, where someone from Qatar and someone from the Emirates implemented this know-how inside an extremely developed market and an extremely developed sport, like what they did with Man City and PSG, where they essentially bought the best player in every single position without caring about their finances, without caring about their bottom line, without caring about their net profit. They just want to win. That is all they want. And this is what, sadly and surprisingly, we're experiencing in esports. So when you see something like that happening in football, okay, it's football. Like, you want to prove that you are a superpower in terms of the Emirates and a superpower in terms of Qatar. Yes, that makes sense. But what happened with us last year in esports, a very small sector, something that you need to organically leave to grow by itself, they went in, they poached 80% of our staff and players, and we didn't have what it takes to keep them, because we were giving our players around $400, $500 per month, and they got offers for $5,000, $6,000 per month. That did not make any sense whatsoever. They got the offer in January, and it didn't make any sense. So when the players came to us and the parents came to us, we're like, go. Like, we can't tell you to stay and take 10% of something. Like, everything we've taught you in the past 4 years is contradicting our decision if we tell you to stay, because there's no tournament or anything that's going on that makes this a viable investment. Because if we give each of you this amount of money, then the entire ship will sink, because we don't. Why would we do this? And after everyone left 3 months later, surprise, there's a tournament for $1 million for League of Legends. So we won 16 tournaments. 16 tournaments. And you know how much we made? We made around $3,000. $3,000 in 16 tournaments. And the 17th tournament, where all of our roster was taken and all of the stuff, and we had to rebuild, was for $1 million. And they found out before we did. Let's not get into that, because that would be a conference call by itself. But it was a pretty painful experience, because we had a few investors at the time. We didn't have as much as we have now. But from what our ex-players did in that tournament, and what we've been doing for the past 5 years, we were able to approach a lot of VCs and a lot of investors in the past 6 months and show them that if at the time we had offered these players the same amount that they would have been getting from the GCC region, we would have been much better, because we have our own training facility. We're physically connected with each player. When the other organizations just offer a big sum and let them stay at home, they buy them a PC, they buy them an internet connection. There's no solid connection between the organization and the player. It's just that the organization wants to win a tournament. For me personally, I always focus on developing the players now, because at the end of the day, they will be our managers, they will be our coaches in the future. They will work in marketing when it comes to tech. They will work in a lot of things that coincide with esports. So that's always what I look at, and that was always what I used to look at, and until that happened last year. And when we opened up for a group of investors all around the Middle East to invest in Anubis itself and what we're about. Thankfully, thank God, we got a $450,000 seed investment, and we currently just moved in the first fully fledged training facility in the Middle East, where 15 players live. Our roster for Valorant, Crossfire, and League of Legends all live in this training facility, and this is what we were able to accomplish, you know. And part of that, like you said, when it comes to regulation, of course it helps when you have an association or when you have something in the government that's sort of your backbone. But right now, I think it's like it's not the right time to include governmental institutions when it comes to esports, because like we all have been talking about for the past 40 minutes, our society still doesn't understand what esports is, and that goes also for the regulators. Is that I think if they step in now, it would be for the wrong reasons, you know, because the first role I ever took was a member of the Egyptian Federation for Electronic Sports. That was my first role, and they weren't doing anything wrong, but they were approaching the industry the same way they're approaching football. You can't approach a developed industry like you would an undeveloped industry. You have to take responsibility in developing it yourself and not looking at the ROI when it comes to a regulator. But because you're so used to sports making you money and making you a solid income, you still stick to the format of inserting yourself into a market to regulate so you can profit. And I'm sure you guys from Africa know what I'm talking about.
Question, Yusuf.
Yeah.
How is the government regulation for you right now? Like, in as much as we definitely, I do agree with you, especially when it's in its infancy. It's let the market let it be a free market.
Exactly.
And then let people learn, let the entrepreneurs learn how to make it work. It's like any new thing that comes up. Let's say even if it's electricity, when electricity was being discovered by Tesla or back in the day, Edison. So it's let the free market take it up, and then the government kind of comes in now for the heavy lifting, the grids, and
exactly just what you said. We need to do the heavy lifting. We as an organization, as the publishers, as the tournament organizers, we need to do the heavy lifting. We need to be in a strong position so that when the regulators come in, because it's not the same in Africa and the Middle East as the rest of the world, we need to be in a strong position. We cannot be dominated,
Is there government regulation right now in Egypt for you guys?
For esports, no. For I've tried for the past 5 years to register Anubis as an official esports team. I've succeeded, of course. The Minister of Youth and Sport has met with me 4 months ago, and he made it very clear that was one of their goals. But I'm still convinced that we need to strengthen ourselves first, because you need to be in an extremely strong position to get the ears of these people. Because if you're not at a strong position, someone else, like Alwyn pointed out, someone else that they think is at your level or that they think has the same know-how, because they've implemented themselves in a different sport. So, for example, if a big football team creates an esports team right now, the biggest football team in Egypt, they will go with that, of course.
Yeah.
But and you can't say that that's an incorrect decision unless you prove yourself and you grow yourself, Yeah. And I had to learn that the hard way in a very, very tough 2 years, but it was a good learning experience. I think it's a very, very difficult region to succeed in. But ever since we got our investment, I think we started that journey of strengthening ourselves. Of course, the side effect was that I lost a very big chunk of the company, but I saw that as a valid compensation for putting us in a strong position. So it was sort of a very big risk on my part, because I've been putting my blood, sweat, and tears in this organization for the past 6 years. I've lived in the gaming house for the past 6 years. No social life, nothing when it comes to having fun or having a life, and I'm not upset at all. But someone mentioned that, I think Eric mentioned it, we should be also thankful. Of course, it's a painful road, but we all should be thankful that we're part of the road from the start. We're builders. We are not participators, we are initiators. And this is something that we have to be very thankful for. Of course, the journey will be painful, of course, but it will all be worth it in the end, because we all know that right now, if you go to a 12-year-old and you give him a basketball, a volleyball, or a football, and there on the other hand you have a controller, we all know the decision he's going to take. And I know a lot of people will attack us and say, oh, but esports makes you fat and you don't get active and you spend 15-16 hours in front of a screen. Okay, let me be very, 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 very clear, as clear as I can be. The only reason we are using a screen, the only reason we are using a keyboard is because technology has not enabled us yet to use our entire body. That will happen.
I've actually seen VR games where
not like the future. Like I swear to you, man, in 15 years we will wake up to our kids banging in the room. We will walk in and they will be huge guys with 6-packs and they will be playing Call of Duty, and the more they play, the more active they get, the more fit they get, the more buff they get, because they will have to use their entire body. This is this is esports. Esports on a very regular basis tries as much as it can to use a new part of your body. Of course, some people would say,
allow me to cut you short there, man. Like, there are a couple of points you brought up, which I am excited. I'm sure everyone is excited to really want to delve into. There are 2 points, but there are majorly 2 points I really want to highlight, which you mentioned in your conversation. I'll let Alwin take it up, and then we'll go to Cholo and then Eric. You kind of mentioned on talent management, which is also part of the things you want to talk about. Yeah. Especially when you're saying you are offering, let's say, $450, $500 a month, someone comes with $5,000. Just in terms of talent management, I'd say, I'm sure even Eric kind of mentioned this when he was talking about $1,000, let's say 4 or 5 years ago. Now it's a different conversation. The athletes, the esports athletes are very young. By the time you hit past 25, if you're 30, you're somewhat retired. Yeah. So they're very young guys. And if it's a young guy and he's coming in right now, when there's a lot of, let's say, pomp and flair in this thing, and you hear someone has won $3 million in a Fortnite tournament, you hear maybe Dota 2, there's a team that won $10 million. It's not the same as when it was starting. So right now, if you tell someone, okay, I'll give you even that $1,000, even $500, even $100, regardless of the amount, they will have that expectation of having it be a bit higher. So maybe Alwin, how do you manage and keep talent? And then 2, please touch on government regulation in South Africa.
Okay, cool. Happy to take that one. Yeah, I think let's just quickly cover the regulation thing. From our side, it's actually quite quick. So there's no regulation in South Africa currently. Government not really getting involved. There are individuals or organizations that want to own it, but it's not really possible, because what esports enable us to do is we can try and qualify for any tournament that we want in the world. As long as we're good, as long as we've got the finances to go over and play in some local qualifiers, whatever, I think we've proven it from our side, qualifying for the World Esports Games, the one in Dubai, and then also going to play in China. All of that qualifications we did from South Africa. So, and we didn't need permission, we didn't need anyone's help to actually do that. So from that point of view, no regulation. I'm not entirely in agreement with government getting involved, because from a contractual point of view as well, we're very much a business. So our contracts are with the individuals, and when they sign that with us, as soon as another organization or someone else is interested, it's happened before, where organizations came to us and said, look, we're interested in this player or this player. It just becomes a player trade. And that's where our conversations went. So our situation is a little bit different in that sense. And we traded the player. Obviously, we got paid for that, which is, I think, the traditional sense when you look at any sport and esports globally as well, when players start moving. We are, however, in the process of establishing an esports body of some sort in South Africa with the top organizations in South Africa at the moment. We don't want to regulate or restrict it, but we just want to ensure that there's a fair environment in which people can move around. Because, as I said, one of the problems that we have in the industry at the moment is that players, as soon as things start going wrong, they generally just tend to leave their teams and not honor their contracts, and or you might have another organization, which causes animosity in the organization which players they want, and that organization breaks apart, and it then makes it easy for the new organization to then take those players. So we are establishing some sort of body to help, especially the new guys. I think for brands like White Rabbit Gaming and the other competitive brands that's quite large in South Africa, that obviously doesn't happen. But to create a safer and more competitive environment, we are creating that body where we'll get representation from everyone involved to ensure that these are the rules, okay? And if you're in this industry, this is how we're going to regulate it. This is how you play fair. If you don't play fair, there will obviously be penalties and ways that we will have to or methods we have to apply to ensure that you play by the rules in order to grow as an industry moving together. So I think with regards to regulation, that's pretty much where we're sitting at the moment. In terms of managing and or improving and maintaining talent, you actually mentioned quite an interesting fact where you said that your esports career is around about your early 30s. It's pretty much over. And I actually always thought that as well, but when I thought about it again, I think it's purely because it's a new industry. So naturally, your talent will be sitting in the young pool because these are the guys that's native to the environment. It's the guys that's they literally grew up with technology in their hands. So what I foresee to happen in the near future is that your age gap will actually become a lot higher, and your competitive age gap will probably last a little bit longer. So you'll probably have people peak around about their mid to late 20s. I don't know, this is just a prediction, but I do think that as the sport itself grows older, your age gap will widen quite a bit as well in terms of your length of time that you're allowed to play. In terms of how we actually support and maintain our talent, I would say the first thing is support for your teams is critical. It's critical to the team's success, it's critical to the team's health, and it's actually critical to the success of your brand as well, because the worst thing that you can do is put a player in a situation that's constantly pressurized, they constantly need to deliver on, and they're not sure how, especially they haven't dealt with workplace pressure or team pressure or performance pressures in this environment. So you actually have to work very closely with these guys to show them, okay, well, this is how you handle pressure. This is what you need to do. Whether you've got a sports coach, whether you've got a life coach, whether you've got someone helping you to help them cope with that environment, that's really, really important. So constant communication with your teams, checking in with them, making sure that your captains are fine, making sure that your team managers are fine, and then the players as well is quite critical for me in terms of a team success. And then also being involved yourself. I think for the bigger organizations, like Fnatic, you obviously won't get the board members getting involved, or I don't know, maybe Eric can give us a little bit of insight on that, but they might not get involved in each individual player because the organization is quite big and there's a lot of stuff happening in the background where more newer established markets like South Africa, for example, we still have the privilege where I can get involved at a very base level with my players. So I check in with them regularly. We're on WhatsApp groups. We share jokes, we chat generally. Whenever there's a tough game, we chat about it. Whenever there's a good game, we congratulate, we celebrate together. So just making sure that they've got a human element that they can connect with. So yes, they are playing for a bigger brand. Yes, they are part of a professional organization, a bigger family, but it's not just the brand. You can actually put a face to the brand, and people can relate with the brand as well. So when the game dips, if they're if there's what we usually find is that when a player's game dips, there's usually some kind of issue, like a personal issue or like a home issue or like a coping mechanism that's not working for them. And those are the things that you need to find out, and you can't find that out unless you're actually face to face with the player and working with them to sort out those issues. And then that's also the reason why you have subs in your team as well, so that when one or two players, it's very seldom that more than one player, but when that player actually has those issues, that you have a sub that can step in when this person actually, takes the time to sort out one or two things that they're struggling to deal with. And when that player comes back, it's usually a lot better and the team's a lot stronger because they help them through that. And I think the last thing from our side in terms of how do we coach and work with our players is pretty much giving them what they need as far as possible. You need to ensure that, these guys are professionals, okay? So you need to make sure that they've got the gear to work on. Logitech was great to partner with us at the beginning of the year. We started a partnership with them, and they ensured that our players have the best peripherals to play on. Okay, so keyboard, mouse, headset, mouse pad. AMD making sure that we've got the best CPUs and GPUs and things to play on. So that to us is really, really important, that we provide the players with the gear that they need in order to perform. Over and above that is there's sometimes software that you can have, especially as an example, sim racing, where you need software to monitor what your car is doing. So you can analyze that, and for the various tracks that you can adjust things like tire temperature, your suspension, things like that. For CSGO, that you've got software where you can actually analyze, okay, what the other team's doing, okay, where are their points, where they're sitting, which rounds are they taking risks, where you can expect stuff from. For Dota, okay, warding, where do they ward, where do they de-ward, what timings do you expect them to be in the enemy jungle, and all of that software actually provides you with a competitive edge as well that you can use. And as an organization, you need to ensure that you are equipped with that information and that software, so that your team can actually use it efficiently and then use that to gain the competitive advantage over their competitors as well. So that's pretty much it. You need to ensure as an organization that your team is supported emotionally and then also functionally from a hardware and and a strategic point of view as well, to ensure that your team can actually move forward. Because as soon as you start giving that, you give them that support structure, there's literally no reason why your team will leave, or why players would look elsewhere, because they support it. And if they support it, they start playing better. When they start playing better, they win more. So that's what we've experienced on our side.
Thank you. That was very structured.
I generally do stuff in a structured way, so.
Appreciate it, man. Cholwe, you're fairly new. How do you manage, just same question, in Zambia? How is it for you? How do you manage talent and also government regulation?
Okay. Before I start, sorry if there's any noise, there are kids around. Neighbors' kids. Yeah. Okay. So for us in Zambia, we don't have any government regulation per se. But I have had some people say some people are looking to contact me, some lawyers or some people within government. So I've just been waiting for them to contact us. And I think it's basically them trying to understand, like, what's this new thing? Because most of the time they've just heard of gaming as betting. I think that's a common thing somehow in Africa, where they assume eSports is betting. So that's the thing. That's where we are at. But there was an association that was supposedly formed. But after I interacted with them, they generally had no background knowledge about esports. The same thing that Yusuf was talking about, that he kind of mentioned. They had no understanding about the industry, basically nothing at all, except that the person had a connection with someone in government, so it was easy for the papers to get approved and for it to be organized. So that's where we're at when it comes to government regulation. When it comes to our contracts, for example, the way Yusuf was saying that we need that type of oversee in terms of government. Our contracts right now are just between the business and the players as a private entity, a private company. But we're also hoping for a situation where we can have the form of stability where, like, much like the way Arwin has mentioned, where like all the teams come together and then you have some form of stability where players understand that if a contract is of a certain duration, they have to respect that duration, or any other things that may be in place, maybe just accept honoring the contract per se. So we're hoping that we can have some form of foundation towards that, because we haven't yet reached at the point of SA or at the point of Fnatic, where everything is just bigger. So I'm hoping that we can try and set the foundation, the milestones for that. When it comes to player management, since it's a small knitted organization, we do have personal contact. I manage relations between the players and myself. The thing is, our organization is just 2 people. So in terms of founders, and then we have 2 content creators and 3 team players. No, 4 team players actually. So it's a very tight-knitted group right now. We haven't yet really grown into more titles and everything. So I talk to the players almost every day. I try to be engaged in their lives. It's true what happens, we have to really be in touch with them at the ground level. And I hope as we grow as an organization, even the people who will be parts of the team when I'm not around, who still try to manage those relations, because sometimes you get carried away by the business. You forget about the actual people who are fighting, like the little soldiers on the ground, the players who are actually, having their foot up for up front. So I try to be part of their relationship, try to follow their training schedules, what players, what characters are they using that they really need to brush up on, what challenges are they having, encourage them to play with people who are at a higher skill level than them always, because when you play with lower skill level players, you think you're better. So we try to always push our players to challenge themselves. And so far, the small systems that we have within the organization and the strategies we have in terms of putting everyone to know their strengths and weaknesses have worked for us. So it's just a matter of us being tested when the organization becomes bigger to see if these small systems we have in place can actually be beneficial, need to be adjusted. So that's what I can say. I can't hear you.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
So Eric, I really want to be more specific on in your office, because I'm sure if it's management, there is that it's somewhat similar. Players are players. If it's being professional, they need to be professional. Let's touch up on, especially, let's say, building a brand and building a brand in the space, and also partnership, and how do you market yourself? We'll also just touch quickly with everyone because we cut it short. How do you, let's say, get to where I say Anubis and then guys just stand? It's not just that Egyptian god. It's a team. If I say White Rabbit, Gematrix. How do we build a brand to that level? And because I'm sure Fnatic is a word, but you tell a gamer Fnatic, they'll be, the esports team. Before they say you're a Fnatic in terms of just being a fan. So in brand building, partnerships, and also just marketing yourself.
I think there's a few ways to go about it, and we see there's I think there's 2 types of esports organizations. One approach is, I think the approach Fnatic has taken, even though we're sort of branching out, is to basically market yourselves through results in the arenas, lifting trophies, as Yusuf talked about. That is one approach. It's about winning, it's about becoming the best, and basically as competitive as possible. The other approach is what we see from teams, especially in America, like FaZe Clan is the biggest example, the best example. I think it's super relevant to have a look at. There's also other people that have done their journey in, you got Loud GG in Brazil. So it's basically a content-focused approach. That is your main thing. It's okay to not have the best team in every esports you enter. It's more about the personalities, the content, and basically it's almost like an influencer content approach. Obviously, it's not one way or the other. It's a mix, but I think there's there's two ways to go about to, because the end goal, and that is also what's going to get you partnerships and sponsors and why people are going to want to spend money with you, marketing dollars, is that you have a following. That is what you are selling. You're selling your reach, you're selling eyeballs, you're selling commitment to your brand and your teams and your talent. So yeah, I think figure out like which approach is for you and go hard at it. Don't, obviously don't, just go, I want to do content, or just like mix is the best way forward. But I think that is like the key to it all. And then I think in terms of partnerships, I think Cholo made a good point, which she said about like how, I think you said something about like how you showed up and you realized it wasn't about you receiving money from partners to support you. It's more about you selling a service to the partners, which is good for them, that helps them in their goal. I think that's the main thing about like when you go to partners, is about figuring out how you can change their bottom line, build their brand. What do you have to offer? I think that's like I'm trying to be cautious about time, so don't want to be too lengthy. Does that make sense?
It does. Maybe just one quick note in terms of regulation. Do you guys have regulations in the UK, especially for esports?
I think in terms of regulation, I think it helps. I think it's like government can't control this culture. Like they can try to like ban, in extreme cases, like ban a game, like we've seen in India due to Cold War between India and China, but a semi-lukewarm war, maybe you could even call it. But what I don't think it's the main. It's not the support or non-support of a government. It's not what's going to make or break you. It's going to help if you. I think as an example, like Denmark has been really good at sort of like have a high support, a very thorough support from the government, and they're they're really trying to be a esports country, and they see results. Like I'm sad to say, better. They have produced more superstars in recent years than my native Sweden, even though we're all
South Korea also. I think
exactly. South Korea, China now, they're building esports cities.
Oh.
It's. I mean, China is on its own level, but at the same time, that's what's great about esports. You can, as long as you have an internet connection and maybe servers that are not half across the globe from you to play on, you can climb those ladders. You can break out, even though your government doesn't, have any support for you. The other regulations, I think that could be a fanatic problem in the future, is obviously like things like Brexit, because visas is obviously easier. There's like systems for visas for athletes, right? If we're not part of those programs, but it's not a big thing that we spend a lot of time thinking about. Like, it's not something Fnatic focuses on, because we're global also. So having like we don't operate in the UK. We don't see it like that. Just that.
I think because of time, we'll wrap it up really quickly. Just a really quick fire shots from you guys. Yusuf is supposed to be heading to a tournament in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Go for it, Yusuf.
One, where's the money? Two, how can we create collaborations? How can Yusuf, you're going to pitch to let's say investors. You're looking at let's say the $500,000, but there's someone said, hey, I only have $50,000, but Cholo is like, I will do with $50,000. Fnatic, you're going for maybe 10 million. Alwin says, okay, I don't mind, $1 million or even the 500,000.
Please come get early.
Agreed. How do we build that?
She's making noise.
Oh, the baby. How do you build that collaboration? Just a quick fire round. How do you build collaboration where we can, even if it's talent, can we have Anubis maybe coaching some players, or even management? How can we have Fanatics helping out? I know it's out there. It's not very specific, but just in your own very quick opinions, how can we build collaborations to build that industry, especially so maybe for Africa, to see where we can get to, if it's Asia level, South Korea level, Europe level, US level?
I had to mute Eric when he was talking because I kept laughing because he literally said the problems we faced, that you have two esports organizations, you either win everything or you have good content. And for 3 years, we only focused on winning, nothing else. We didn't even have any social media presence. And for me at the time, because I had a lot of tunnel vision when it comes to tournaments, that was the right decision. But if I would advise someone in the Middle East and Africa on how to get an investment and how to get sponsors, just focus on content. Yeah, that's just the reality of things, because
is that where the money is?
That's where the money is. There's no money in tournaments in the Middle East and Africa, none, zero. Even if you win every single, like I said, we won around 32 tournaments or 33 tournaments in our history, and those 33 tournaments combined in terms of prize money does not come into comparison with a month of good content. So
in terms of content, what do you mean? Gameplays?
Have
streaming?
Each player have their own profile on different social media outlets, have them stream on a regular basis, create content, video content on a regular basis, connect to fans on a text basis through fan page groups and places where you can gather all the gamers that play this game and have them admire this player through their stream or whatever. But that's the way to go. If you really want to make money to keep the lights on, that's the path you have to take, sadly. Even though of course, for me it's sad because the resources needed to go into content kind of diminishes your progress in tournaments a lot, because when a streaming platform comes to you and they say we're gonna give you X amount of money, and the same players that have to stream have to play in a tournament, the investors will always say to hell with this tournament, just let them stream, and that's the incorrect decision in my eyes, because I'm very technical and I'm very result driven, and the thing I'm most passionate about is seeing people who never thought they'd succeed in life winning, and that's my goal in life, to see more and more people who have been ignored and abused actually succeed in front of their abusers and in front of society, because that's what's going to bring in everything. And at the same time, if a player makes it in terms of content, society in the Middle East and Africa will get convinced on esports. At the start, I thought it was winning tournaments, so I thought that if you win, which is still the case, if we win a $1 million championship, I swear to you next week 50 esports teams, 50 or 60, and the president will go on TV and say esports is the official sport for Egypt. I know.
Yeah, it will.
It's crazy, man.
We're closing up.
Crazy. But yeah, that's what I have to say. If you want to make money and you want to show sponsors and investors that you're something worth investing in, focus on content. And it's such a painful thing to say, but it's the truth.
You're really suffering saying this.
Yeah. Very, very much.
All right. Thank you guys. I'll just do a quick shout out to Hirsi, who's just joining us, even if as much as we're wrapping up. Hirsi is he's one of the founders for Watchmen out here in Kenya. Maybe he.
Sorry for cutting you off, but I have to go. Sorry.
That's okay, man. Thank you for your time, Yusuf.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to meet you all, guys. It was a great talk, one of the greatest talks I've ever had the pleasure of talking in. So thank you so much, and
all the best.
Wish us luck in the tournament.
I hope you win.
Good luck.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
So here's you're just stepping in.
Did he have like an Anubis sign?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I'm so sad we don't have a Fnatic sign, I'm so sad. But that's pretty cool, actually. I like
I
that.
know.
I can think I've done just a quick overview with Hirsi. Hirsi, you can introduce yourself as we wait for your camera to come on.
Is it off
Alvin,
again?
It's off again.
I might have to restart my PC, but yeah, while I figure that out, hi guys, my name is Hirsi, one of the co-founders of The Watchmen. Wait, this has to be on. This is very professional, no? It's the guy talking out of the darkness. Is it on now? Is it on now?
On yet.
Is it on now?
It's
I
on
think,
now.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it is.
on
I think it
now.
is. All right.
Hey.
Hi guys.
Hey.
My name is Hirsi, one of the co-founders of The Watchmen. We're an esports team. We were founded around 2015. We've dabbled in quite a few titles. We've rocked with Call of Duty, and that is still our main game. That's what we're most proud of to this day. We have quite a few titles, and we just generally focus on more of the competitive side of things. We have a couple of content creators, but generally speaking, we just pick up the best competitors and do what we do best, which is win. But yeah, that's basically it.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think you'd have gotten along well with Yusuf, especially on the winning part.
He was so
It's unfortunate.
suffering. I've never seen anyone suffer so much by saying something, you know?
I think it's understandable. Maybe Alwin, you can tell us. One, where's the money at? As we wrap it up, where's the money at? And two,
Hey, Daddy.
Nope.
Yeah.
Hey.
Okay, cool.
Alright,
Yeah, so
let me call you back. I'm in a meeting.
Cholwe, you're not.
You need to mute Joey.
Sorry. Sorry, my dad called me. So.
Right. So, Alwin,
Okay.
take it away.
yeah, so look, I mean, it's been mentioned already. Where the money is at is sponsorship and advertising is obviously a big one of that. And you know, as Eric said as well, you know, you do want to win and actually, you know, show that you can achieve the positions, you can achieve those placings. So advertising, sponsorship's really big, really important. And for some teams, if you look globally, you know, I mean, that could make up to 90% of their revenue that they make, which is quite risky. So, and I think that's why it's expanded a little bit. Prize money, as they said as well, prize money can be, especially if you compete in major tournaments like the international, like Worlds, things like that. But then you can also find other ways of actually gaining a little bit of extra revenue from your brand. One of the things you can do is merchandising. The White Rabbit Gaming shirt, for instance, in South Africa, when we actually launched our new shirt, we got a ton of mails and WhatsApp messages, your contacts on Facebook, social media, where people said, you know, we really like your shirts, when can we buy them? So we had to actually scramble to set up our e-commerce store, so to enable people to buy it. So merchandising is a big one, especially if people buy into the brand, they love the brand, they can relate to the brand. It can be a great avenue. And I think the last one, as was mentioned as well, content creation. Content creation is king, you know, especially if you've got a big following. It's something that people believe in, and brands want a piece of that. As I said, wherever the eyeballs go, that's where your investment goes, and that's where brands look at as well. So for me, that is pretty much where it is. And then just touching on that, I think brands also need to choose where they focus on, because not every single brand would be relevant in terms of sponsoring a team. You know, some brands can get involved in terms of sponsoring like a tournament or you know, an individual. I think it's quite a tricky space for brands to be in, but very exciting at the moment as well. But that's how I would summarize it in terms of where the money lies at the moment.
Cholwe.
Yes, quickly. I'll do it quickly. Yes, for me, I think exactly what Eric and Owen said, content is king. And I believe for us in a position, for example, in Africa, we have to kind of dip into both. We have to try and make a decent balance between both spaces, because if we can get our brands growing to a decent number, a decent number of eyeballs looking at us every day, every week, and also at the same time, if we can bring content that's so valuable that it doesn't feel forced when brands come in and say, want to create content with you. Make content that's true to your audience. At the same time, we can also invest in tournaments, locally, trying to build awareness about our local scene as well by terms of participating in local tournaments. That's very important. The other thing is merchandise. Merchandise is really good, exactly what you said. because I've seen it. I've seen merchandise as a way that we can also make our fans feel more connected with the brands, so that they can, carry a piece of us with their everyday life, whether it's a coffee mug, whether it's a cup or a t-shirt or joggers, whatever it is. That's very important, because people will be like, oh, where did you get that jersey? Who's that? Because I remember when our player went to the US for the first time at Evo World Championships, because our jersey was so unique, everyone was wondering, is that jersey from Los Angeles, or where is that jersey from? Wondering where our flag is from and everything. And seeing the type of merchandise we had was really good, because after that we saw our followers even grow, because people are like, what's this team about? So it's also important that our fans have a piece of us with them, and we create content that's valuable to our audience and our potential partners or sponsors.
Thank you very much. So let's just run it up also with Eric, and then we'll get our word also from Hirsi. You just mentioned the BMW. That's a very non-endemic brand. Like, it's like saying Colgate, like, sponsored. Like, how do you even, if you get MSI, that makes sense. If you get, let's say, Red Bull, Monster, they kind of make sense. But how? Kind of just touch on that real quick.
How on earth did you now? A lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into that deal. But I think it's like this. The non-endemic brands, like, they see the numbers, they all the marketing, the CMOs of Europe, they see the, sports numbers are constantly on decline. And a lot of, these brands, they've been partnering with regular sports for the last 30, 40, 50 years, and they see the decline happening, so they realize that they have to come into this space eventually, right? Because this is where the youth is going to be, and this is also like a League of Legends fan won't stop be a League of Legends fan because he or she turns 40, we will be watching eSports when we're 80 as well. It won't go away. So I think a smart marketeer. So BMW, they basically saw the numbers, which for League of Legends are massive in terms of viewership. Like, the world's final is seen by over 100 million people. It's also ginormous in a very important market to these brands, China, which it's even bigger in China than it is in Europe and in the US. So it's very popular in very in very strong regions. And for BMW, I think it also had a little bit to do with the fact that Mercedes sponsored the event itself. So I think they wanted to see a BMW logo on the jersey of when they lift the trophy, at the Mercedes-Benz sponsored event. But yeah, I think we're seeing in Europe and US and Asia, like, if you work with marketing, you have to be in the space if you're trying to market to people that's between 15 and 30, like, if you're sleeping on esports and that's your demographic, you're not doing your job well, because that's how big it is.
We need to quote that. Like, that should be the tagline.
Yeah, I think I'm going to quote it.
But that we have the numbers to show for it, obviously.
True.
Like, we're not bullshitting anyone. We're offering great reach and big numbers, and that's like, we had a collaboration with Gucci as well, and Gucci were over the moon on the sort of numbers we delivered in terms of engagements and impression. And so it's like, we have something real to offer these brands, and they realize it now. But it doesn't, as you can imagine, it doesn't go overnight. And these, big decisions of entering into a new world, boardrooms and 50-year-old plus men in suits are usually not super fast in realizing the new youth movements. So we have to give them some time, to understand, and we have to prove to them that we're worthy, that we are, a good place to spend your marketing dollars.
Just on the last point, where's the money? From your experience.
So for us, partnerships is still the biggest revenue stream. Our apparel business is also, a significant amount of money.
Yeah, you guys have a store actually.
Yeah, we have an online store, and we sell apparel for, quite a bit of money. And then we make our gaming peripherals ourselves, which is quite a bit different. I don't think there's no other esports orgs that does that as well. So instead of having Logitech sponsoring us, we make our own peripherals, which is a bit of a bold thing to do, because, instead of taking, millions from these big boys, we took a risk ourselves, because we think, that we can sell, we can take a sponsorship for 2 million, but we actually, think we should be able to make much more selling peripherals with our names, And then the other thing that I think will be a big revenue is, which is not yet, is broadcasting rights, which is, what football clubs make their, huge amounts of money. I think that comes in in League of Legends. We're a franchisee for LEC, which then we have invested into the League of Legends league in Europe, and hopefully that the viewership is growing like crazy. Hopefully, we'll see a big bidding war between YouTube and Twitch and who else on who
Facebook,
gets
Facebook wants to get that.
Yeah, and then hopefully that's gonna be a big chunk of money in the future. But it's broadcasting rights is not where it should be. I think that's like a big missing piece of the puzzle of how to make money as an esports team. But we'll get there.
We will. Here's
Yeah.
we are getting you at the tail end of this.
I don't know why I'm going after Eric, because it looks like I have nothing to say at this point,
But it's
what do you mean, man?
Like honestly, like yeah.
Because we have a whole spectrum of teams, from the guys that are starting to guys that are established, and everyone in between. So just give us, in your opinion, like where do you think the money is in this space, and in the context of let's say just talking to brands. I think as Eric had mentioned, are there like that weird brand that got interested in, like, okay,
So so it's interesting, especially in East African markets, especially for Kenya. That's what I can speak on, right? It's most of the time it's not about what you can do for the brand. It's actually getting them to understand that this is a viable option of investment to begin with, right? Because I feel like most of the people you talk to locally have no idea what you're talking about, right? But I think the weirdest partnership we've ever had was with at iHub. I think Thomas does. There's a restaurant it's a coffee shop, the one at the complete top.
Yeah.
Right. It's called what is it called? I even forgot the name. It's called My Cup or something along those lines, right? But I remember doing a 48-hour stream, like they just for product placement, just providing coffee and stuff like that. They offered, just for that screen time, they offered like quite a unexpected offer to partner with us. But I think at that point, what that shows is people just want, similar to what Eric said, they just want to be put out there when other people are being put out there. So it's more like they feel pressured into coming into the certain part of the industry just because other people are in it, as opposed to them understanding the dynamics of what's going on, right? So locally, I think the money really is in Thomas's hands. I'm kidding, but really, I think it really comes down to, it's more just tournament based, right? Because I don't think people are very comfortable like supporting a person or a team as opposed to the whole tournament. Because I feel like they feel that it is more more of a safe investment putting it into the hands of someone who's running the whole thing as opposed to one team when they don't understand the dynamic that comes to it. But recently, I believe when it comes to following, like there've been a lot of esports startups and there've been a lot of passionate supporters, which we didn't have before. Because before, the only people who were passionate about the scene were the people playing in it, right? But now there's a lot of people who have no interest in competing, who will follow everything you do. Like I stream almost on a daily basis and I get 50, 60 viewers, half of whom don't even play the games that I play. But the fact that it's a competitive thing, it attracts them more than anything. So I believe the real money here, given we don't talk about the sponsorships and the content creation, which I think is something everyone can somewhat relate to. I think it comes down to how loyal your followers are to you. So, for example, like if you're going to an event, can you get people to come, right? Because that's another incentive for whoever's running the event to actually get you to come there, whether it's by paying you or giving you free entry or facilitating your transportation, your movement. So I think the biggest thing right now that people are overlooking in the local scene is loyalty. Like how good are you to the people who actually facilitate what you do? Yeah.
Thank you, man. I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you guys taking time to just talk about esports, this whole new thing.